Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka... And we are back with another Twitter thread. Folks, today our goal is to make sure that Konami doesn't have to expend one brain cell thinking over the next 19 months. I have posited a question to you, and it is this. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been around for so long, it seems like they've done everything possible with cardboard, or have they? I think personally there's a ton of unexplored design space that Konami could expand. What seldom used effects do you want to see more often? And I'm beginning with number 69, Heraldry Crest Dark Matter Demolition. So this is a new card and says you can detach a material from this card, target a face-up monster your opponent controls, that monster's name becomes unknown, and then any unknowns effects are negated. I think that modifying the name of individual monsters is really cool, and I wish we saw more of it. Of course, it's a rules nightmare. Let's see what you all came up with. Spence has a good one, says, I've always been fascinated by face-down banished cards. I'd love to see cards that flip themselves or other cards in your banishment face down to activate an effect, or cards that flip face-down banished cards face up, turning into desires, cost into additional resources. Face-down banishing is one of the very few game locations where very few cards interact with them. I think the only stuff that can really rearrange or care about face-down banished cards is like Omega. Like, there's really, really few cards that actually interact with it. Yeah, the Gizmek stuff cares about it, I guess, but I like the concept of being like, you can discard this card to the graveyard, target a card in your opponent's banishment, flip that card face down. That's like a really cool idea for a hand trap. Bedganator has a really interesting one. To this day, there are no cards in the game that destroy another card for cost, assumedly as the implications of plussing off the float would be too strong. However, we already have cards that plus off of being discarded or tributed for cost, so why not let us? For cost is something that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very slowly becoming a little more comfortable with adding to cards. So obviously, we can think of a dozen circulars that now send from deck to graveyard for cost, something that's almost always a net positive. But as Kevin has examined previously on Twitter, there aren't any cards that do a flat positive thing for cost, like gain life points or draw a card. I would like to see positive costs included in Yu-Gi-Oh! Though I understand why they don't. It's like, it's kind of gnarly to explain to new players. No, you can't stop the good part of this card, you know? Jared has a good one. I hate the pend mechanic, but the pendulum monsters that don't do pendulum mechanic stuff I find really cool as long as the full card doesn't have word slop in each text box. Cards like Dreaming Nemlaria fit this bill really well, and I hope this is the way. I love this card a ton. I love Valmonica's a ton. I really like the Abyss Actors. Obviously, that's because I'm a fruity little theater kid. And I really like the Anacraft stuff, too, that aims to use it as like a holding facility for flips. I like the Valance because they like move between zones, some of which are pendulums and some of which aren't. It is unfortunate that pendulum seems to be at its best when it's used as a vehicle for an innovative type of effect and not to perform pendulum summons. Oh, speaking of, here's Valance. A deck that messes with zones. I'd argue that Valance is like the first deck that really cared about like the Senate switch effect. It was an attempt to explore that design space. I think they probably will not do it again for two reasons. Firstly, it's kind of hard to make interesting. And secondly, it gets really confusing really quickly. You're always having discussions with your opponent about like which zone it's located in. You kind of have to play a zoned mat, and cards that could be pendulums being in non-pendulum zones is like, I really don't want to have to interact with it. Cards that break our perceived limits of the game. We thought 12 was as high as it could go. Well, here's a 13, and now I want more. A level 13 ritual or synchro or even fusion, a pendulum with a 14 or -1 scale. I just want to see how far we can go. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is really good at taking things that should be silver bordered and just printing them. The 13-star Xyz is, of course, a fantastic example, but I do want to see a lot more number variation. Like, why not just print a pendulum scale with like an infinity in one side, right? How cool would that be? The correct answer is chain links. They seem to be exploring it with the new synchro Zaren, but more effects that interact with other chain links or gain effects based on how many things were chained after it would be sick. I have long been a proponent of the chain link effects. There was a whole pack of support for them, like Iris the Earth Mother and Combo Fighter and Man Beast of Ares and a bunch of other shit you've never heard of. Zaren the Chainbound Dragon is one that's actually good. When a card effect is activated in response to a card effect, you can either negate the effect and destroy the card, or negate the effects of the card that was responded to and then destroy that card. I like that. It's cool. It's awesome. This is interesting, and I think signals that they are willing to engage with this a little more. Gunkan Suship Shari Red has a name change that is different than every other name change. This card's name becomes Gunkan Suship Shari while in the hand, deck, graveyard, or in the field. So this applies while it's in the deck, but doesn't impact deck building, unlike all of the other cards that share names with other cards, the Harpy Ladies, for instance. This enables you to play 3 of this card and 3 of Gunkan Suship Shari, Atari, which is a cool idea that I hope they explore a little further. It'd be nice to be like, what if there was an archetype where every single card had the same name, and like Relentless Rats got better the more of them you had, but they all had different names as well. What do you want me to say about this one, Dyer? Logistically, I understand why they don't, but it would be so cool to have an archetype that shuffles bombs into my opponent's deck and forces them to draw them or something. I know there's something here. So one interesting thing that's been done with this type of effect in the past is Hearthstone's bombs. It's really hard to look at the bombs and not imagine they're exactly parasite, but shuffle bad cards into your opponent's deck, and then when they draw them, they get a huge downside is something that works perfectly in a digital environment and impossibly in paper. This card, I'm pretty sure, is almost impossible to actually resolve in paper, and if you bring it to an event, a judge will just quietly pull you aside and kill you. They're legally allowed to kill you. There are two summoning mechanics that are main deck, Ritual and Pendulum. Why is there not a Ritual Pendulum archetype? Every single one that sort of leans into it does it half-assedly. Yugioh, Nouvelle, and Nekroz. You could even use the scale effects to Ritual summon. That's tight as fuck. Nouvelle gets close. Nouvelle gets very close, but yeah, really is kind of missing the ability to stick the landing here. I think the fact that they are playing with these and other archetypes makes me excited for the possibility that they will hop into it in the future. I have a conspiracy that I think Megalith was supposed to be this, but they chickened out. They even fucking look like Pend scales. Oh my god. The like ignition effect that performs a ritual summon was supposed to be their scale effect. I literally believe that with no evidence. Monsters that trigger off of being detached as material. We have plenty of stuff that grants effects, but not many based around actually doing extra stuff when detached, adding layers to interaction. Additionally, playing with materialist Xyz, either positive or negative. Wow, both of those are good. With respect to cards that trigger if they are detached as Xyz material, there's actually very few of them, right? Just direYGO and the Onomat stuff. This one's just totally outdated. It's so funny to be like, yeah, sometimes monsters get weaker once their material is off. Like they've detached all their overlay units, so they're a little more useless now. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's not ever going to be a position where the game isn't resolved almost immediately. Yeah, this is a great one. We should be allowed to play rock, paper, scissors more. I love interacting with my opponents in weird ways. It's just sad we've never seen a good version of something similar. I think the closest card like this that I would hazard to call good would be Clashing Souls, which has a few applications in decks that natively bring life points down, where you like try and outbid an opponent. But I love these cards that make you enter some sort of skill game with your opponent. I need more Ass Trap. Okay, we have very few monsters that can special summon themselves from the deck. I think the fewer the better. It's a little irritating to have an opponent continue plays from like the graveyard when they have no cards in hand or on the field. It is infuriating if they can start doing it from the deck. The only thing that is preventing these from being the most frustrating cards in the world is that all of them at present are really bad. Again, the fewer the better. I know this would be a logistical nightmare, but face up cards in the deck. Pharaoh's Treasure says, shuffle this card into your deck face up. If you draw this face up card, send it to the graveyard, then target a card in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. Thankfully, this card is bad. Face up cards in the deck is almost impossible. It presents a logistical problem that I think is really funny, and that's that sleeve manufacturers expect all your cards to face the same way. It would also make cutting really funny. Oh, hell yeah, dude. We should have this card by now. We should have that, like, there's not even like an unplayable promo that says this can't be used in a duel. We should have this card by now. Does it really create that many rules problems? Yes, but time for me to ask a really frustrating question. Downlink, bottom right link, judgment arrows, top right link, uplink, downlink. Is that a U-link? It's like a really big U, a horseshoe link. It's a dangerous gamble, but I think there's a lot of space within the realm of cards that want your opponents to interrupt your plays. This is definitely a dangerous gamble. I'm glad you've identified it as such. I mean, you've printed 3 insanely interesting cards in Witch's Strike, which is comically bad. You put too many cards in the game that punish an opponent for interacting, and they're going to be played going first to insulate a board that's unbeatable. But there does have to be some kind of push-pull between hand traps instead of just being like, oh, I'll just fire my interaction trying to stop you. Like, there should be a decision point where your opponent's like, do I want to necessarily open myself up to triple tack? It being at 1 kind of prevents that from happening. Along the same lines with Heraldic Beasts, I wish more Xyz archetypes had cards that treated themselves as multiple materials because of how prevalent this effect was in Zexal. They do this in Zexal. It's like it counts as double overlay units, can be treated as 2 materials for the Xyz summon of a number Xyz monster that requires 3 or more materials. How interesting. All the time. Constantly. But there are so few cards with this text on it. No. This is where I have to put my foot down. You are correct. This is a totally unexplored thing you can do in Yu-Gi-Oh! There are some interesting ramifications to doing this. Fuck no, can this ever be allowed to be a part of anything reasonable. All right, Konami, once again, we have given you 18 months of new cards to print. Get on it. I think in terms of exploring card design, my opponents and I should explore each other's bodies. Yeah. We'll buy out your GB hunters now.